Hello for inviting me here, and today I will talk about optimal competitive auction, and this is joint work with Ning Chen from NTU of Singapore and Nick Graver, also from Microsoft Research in New England, Boston. Okay, here's the plan of this talk. First, I will discuss two business models, auction and pricing. Then I will focus on the case where in what kind of scenario we would like using auction rather than pricing. Then I will define this framework called competitive analysis to measure the performance of our auction scheme. Then we have our model of this mainly studied in this work called digital goods. It's kind of a model for a market scenario, and we get an optimal auction with respect to this framework of competitive analysis for that model. And finally, I will talk about some extension of this basic model. So you can stop me anywhere if you am not clear on anything. So pricing, I think you are very familiar with pricing, because when you go to a supermarket, every item is associated with a price. Then based on your preference and based on your budget, you can choose whatever you want, and you just pay the price accordingly. And this is true for the traditional supermarket. It's also true for the online supermarkets like Amazon. This Taobao in China is the biggest online business. Okay, this is pricing. So it's very common and everyone knows that. For auction, it's a bit more complicated, because in the pricing scheme business model, there's no further interaction between the buyers and the sellers. After the seller set the price, it's the decision for the buyer alone. And in the auction, it's there's communication between the seller and the buyer, and even among the buyers. So this is kind of a typical scenario of auction. It's maybe an auction for some artwork, or this is an auction for land. Also, this kind of thing is so you can see it's much more expensive to hold auction, because you need to bring all the bidders or buyers together, and they need to have a communication, have a setup. So this is traditionally in the traditional economics, it's usually used. The auction is reserved for the item which is very valuable, such like artwork, land. It's very valuable, so it can afford this kind of overhead to hold auction. But in nowadays, it's kind of internet economics. So very cheap things like the keywords in a search engine auction. So it's very cheap. It's like $1 or even less. But because it's everything is online, you don't need to bring everyone together. So in the internet age, and there are many new business models also based on auction rather than pricing. So that's a kind of new phenomenon. So given the idea of these two business models, so I think you should agree with me that still, even with the internet, this pricing is still dominating. So in most cases, we actually buy something with low pricing at auction. There's many reasons, and let's say a few. First of all, it's simple and easy for the buyer, because the price for each item is fixed, and you can do whatever you want based on your own preference and budget. And from the seller point of view, it's also good, because the output of the transaction is predictable. Once you sell this item, you get this money. Your profit is all guaranteed. In the auction, before the auction, you don't really know what's the output, what outcome will be. But if this is the case, the pricing is so good, why do we still need auction? So in what kind of scenario you need auction rather than pricing? And there are many cases, many reasons, and I would like to highlight two here. And the most important one, I think, is in the scenario that we don't know how to set the price. Basically, we don't know how to set the price for the item. Like in the artwork case, it's really hard to set a really good price for the item, because if you set price too high, then maybe no one can afford that. You cannot sell the item. If you set price too low, then yeah, of course you can sell that, but your revenue is so low, you don't want to do that. So basically, if you don't have enough information about the valuation of this item among the buyers, then you don't know how to set a good price. Then you want, using this auction, you make use of this auction scheme, this communication, the bids, so you kind of review the price for this item from the buyers. And this is the most important reason we are using the auction. So this is true for the traditional case of artworks, the land. So this kind of item is so valuable, so unique. It's not really easy to know the value beforehand. And for the case like in internet, is there like the keywords? Yes, you can have some partial information based on kind of history data, something like that. They call it big data. But still, the items, the number of different items is so large, and given that volume, it's really difficult to have a very accurate estimate in the item base, because there's so many different items. We cannot really do that in a efficient way, given the constraint of time and space. So that's the main reason why we're using the auction, because we don't know how to set the price, and we don't know how much information about the valuation. Of course, another reason is sometimes we like use auction rather than pricing is we want to make use this computation among the buyers to get more revenue. That's another reason. So these are two business model, and when you want to launch some business or want to sell some item, you want to choose one of them according to your scenario. And after that, still, you want, in the pricing case, you want to know how to set the price, which is kind of maximize your revenue. And in the auction case, you want to design the auction scheme, which to maximize your revenue. Okay, that's the common thing. Okay, so let's speak about auction. So what's the best auction scheme you want to use? So then, that's from there's many studies in the economic literature. So that's the economic approach, which is a very famous called optimal auction design by Mason, which actually won him the Nobel Prize of economics. So there a goal is that find an auction to maximize the expected revenue. That's a goal. So here we have a term called expected, because it's a hidden assumption there. It's not hidden, it's explicit assumptions there. They made is that the valuation for the bidder are drawn from a non-distribution. So with this assumption, we want to find an auction scheme which maximizes the expected revenue. This expected is with respect to this valuation distribution. So actually, Mason design actually build a theory actually finally leads to a optimal auction for any given distribution. But the thing is that the form of this optimal auction actually closely depends on this distribution. For different distribution, you have a different auction scheme which is fit for that. But this assumption is really big, because think about it. When we want to use auction rather than pricing, that's exactly because we don't have information about the valuation from buyer. But in this approach, actually, the assumption is that this valuation distribution is known. So this kind of scenario is not really suitable. It's suitable for for this second purpose. If you already know the valuation and you want to get more revenue, make use of this competition among the buyers, that's suitable. But if in the case that the reason you're using auction is that you don't really have enough information, then this approach is really don't answer the question. So the thing is that our assumption is that we don't have any distribution information. So we don't know how to design the optimal auction based on the Mason optimal auction, because we don't know the distribution. So actually, even worse, even we don't know the optimal auction, even actually we don't know how to compare two auction scheme. If we already gave you two auction scheme, without knowing the distribution, you don't know how to compare which is better. So you want to come up with some definition which is better. One possibility that you want to say that one is kind of dominates the other. One is better than the other one on all possible input. But you can easily show that that's impossible, because if you know the valuation, you actually can always design auction, particularly for that valuation, to extract all the revenue and which is best for that particular input, but it's kind of worse for other, very bad for other. So this is not possible. We cannot talk about something like dominating point-wise. So another idea is basically we want the average performance. But this is a kind of cycle back. When you talk about average performance, you are talking about the expected performance with respect to some distribution. But the thing is that we don't know the distribution. So this is kind of a dead end. So how do we try to adjust that without knowing the distribution? So there's two approaches here actually come from computer science. One is called a framework called competitive analysis, we are focused in this talk. So the idea is that we actually compare the revenue of the auction to some benchmark, which should be some economically meaningful benchmark, which is basically is a function defined on all possible input. Then we measure the performance of this auction by the worst case ratio, but worst case ratio compare the performance of the auction to the benchmark. Okay, so here F is a given benchmark which have some economic meaning, and we want to design an auction scheme A whose revenue for any possible input V is the maximum possible V, so that this ratio is small. If this ratio is small, then this is kind of the revenue for the auction is good compared to this benchmark.
So F is not the optimal algorithm or anything like that?
Not the optimal, because to define the optimal auction, you need to know the distribution. So this is kind of defined and point-wise. It's kind of worst case. It's a definition without any measure.
So you're still trying to get as close to 1 as possible?
Actually, in this definition, it's not necessarily this is less than 1 or larger than 1. Basically, with respect to some benchmark, we want to get the best possible ratio for that.
You want to minimize it.
Minimize that, yeah. But this is not compared to optimal, so the 1 is not have a special meaning here. So it's not, it's not really a kind of approximation algorithm. 1 is optimal here. 1 don't have a special meaning, but yeah. Okay, this is one approach. It's kind of competitive. It's something like the competitive analysis for online algorithm. Is we are compared to the performance of the online algorithm to the offline optimal. But in that case, 1 have a particular meaning because the offline optimal is kind of the best possible for any online algorithm. But here we compare to that for some benchmark, which I will define later.
But your algorithm is not an online algorithm in any sense.
It's not on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one possible way. It's kind of we trying to not compare. We using some benchmark to as a point to compare. Then we define this ratio as a worst case ratio, so it's have nothing to do with distribution. So another approach is called prime independent auction design. That's also very interesting, kind of more intuitive for the economics. So the assumption here is that there is always a hidden distribution. There are, but we don't really know. But this hidden distribution will measure the performance of the auction. It's kind of a ground truth or underlying truth, but you don't know. So then we want to design some auction scheme which cannot depend on this distribution because this is hidden, we don't know. And the idea is that we want to design one single auction which is good for a family of distribution. Maybe we have some constraint about this family of distributions. They are kind of symmetric or they are regular. There are some terms in economics. And we want to design one single auction which is kind of simultaneously good for this family of distribution. That's another idea. So then this auction have nothing to do with the distribution. At least have nothing to do with one single distribution. They may have something to do with the family, because for different family maybe we define different.
So you don't know the distribution, but you want to define the auction to To be good.
To be good.
No matter what the distribution is.
Yeah, as long as it comes from a family.
Oh, you want to make some assumption.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's become also the single point case is if it's also allowed, then it's nothing. Yeah. Because in economics, it's very natural to assume some property of the distribution, like it's concave or it's regular. That's very general assumption there. So this is another approach. It also looks very meaningful, and one very good surprise thing is that these two approaches actually they have connection. Basically, I will not go into the detail, but basically that when this benchmark which defined in this framework have some good economic property, then a good competitive auction in this definition sense is also a good prime independent auction. That's a very interesting and
like by prior you mean like a Bayesian priors or something? Or
yeah. Prime is like Bayesian, but it's independent, so it's not really. It's saying something like not Bayesian. We don't. The auction now depends on the distribution.
So what is that? What does the prior mean here? Because there's no prior or something.
Yeah, so it's a prime independent.
Okay, so again, just forget about prior.
Yeah, you can forget. Yeah. This is just a term. You can say it's a distribution independent. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's good for any distribution.
Yeah, it's good for any distribution from that. Some family. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So now, since there's a connection, so we will focus on this competitive analysis framework, which is mathematically more easier to present. Okay, so now let's get to the model. So what kind of market scenario we are discuss. So here we actually consider the simplest case. So what's the simplest case? So there are only one seller who sell one item to n buyers. Okay. And we assume that it's kind of digital good. That's the meaning of the digital good, is that this item is with unlimited copy, and there are no additional cost for making a new copy. So so makes things easier. So basically, in this simplest model, there's no competition, real competition among the buyers, because if the seller wants, everyone can get a copy. There's no real competition. But the difficulty is that the seller don't know the value of the buyer. So each buyer has a private value VI for the item, which is not known for the seller. Okay. Now, so each buyer will submit a bid BI, which is not necessarily equal to VI. And the auctioneer, which is the seller, look at this vector B1 up to Bn, would have a scheme to decide who will get the item or not. This xi is equal to 0 or 1, indicate this buyer gets the item or not. And for all the buyers who gets the item, the auctioneer will also specify a payment for that buyers, which is P1 up to Pn. And the constraint here is that this payment cannot be larger than the bid, because bid is kind of indicates the maximum amount of money you want to pay. So this is a game for this is a setting for the auction. So it's not it's kind of it's called a sealed one-shot sealed bid auction. It's not like the auction you can raise your bid in a round. You after you seeing the bid further, you can still continue to raising your bid. It's not allowed here. Every buyers only have one chance to submit a bid. And
they all do simultaneously.
Yeah, do simultaneously and privately. And then after see all the bids, the seller will make the decision who will get the item and at what price. Okay, that's the game.
So each price is less than the B.
B, yeah.
But you have enough. You have you have unlimited supply, so you can give it to everybody.
Yeah, you can give it to everybody.
They're bidding on.
Yeah, you can give it to everybody. That's also possible. So then you think from the buyer point of view. So what's the objective for the buyer? The buyer is trying to maximize this quantity, right? VI is a utility if we get the item, and the price is kind of a cost. So we assume this kind of cost linear utility function. So each buyer would like to maximize his own utility, which is defined to be VI times Xi minus BI. Okay.
What is BA? Is it like the maximum amount which bidder is willing to pay?
Yeah, it's. I mean, this is kind of the strategy for the buyer. You can choose whatever BI you want. The meaning is kind of indicate what's the maximal amount you are willing to pay, but you can lie about that in whatever way you want.
And you're only doing this once, or you keep doing this?
Only once.
So why doesn't the seller just sell it to everybody?
If you do that, every buyer will still bid zero. No matter what, he will get item. Then if I set the bid zero, I will not pay anything.
But he doesn't know the strategy.
No, all the buyers know the strategy. The strategy is all the function for this allocation for the payment is open.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, how can you predict the behavior of the buyer? If the buyer not do anything, then they are kind of crazy. Right?
Random.
Yeah, random. Okay. Yeah. So basically, you are given this strategy, or I mean this allocation function, this payment function. Then each buyer will think about that and will choose a BI kind of maximal his possible utility.
Sorry, but why PI does not depend on other BIs? Only.
Sorry. Yeah, this should depend on the whole vector of B. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Also, sorry. This is really the type of all the function depend on all the vectors, not only depend on your bid.
Also, Xi is a function of the vector.
On the vector. Sorry. Yeah. So function of the vector. Yeah. Yeah, basically the auctioneer see this vector and will output two vector. Okay, then it's very complicated because there's given auctions, you need to figure out what's the best strategy for each buyer, and based on this strategy of buyers, then you need to measure the performance of the auction. That's kind of it's a bit complicated than the algorithm, because in the algorithm all the input is given, you just design some allocation which maximum some object. Here you design a auction scheme, then after you design this auction scheme, each buyer will choose his best response for that, and given that assumption, each buyer will do the best response. What's the performance of this auction? So here we most of the study in the economics would like to simplify that by a new solution concept. We want to design the auction. We don't allow any arbitrary function here. We want to only focus on these auctions. It's so good that it's really for each buyer, the best strategy is just report his true utility. And there's one family of auction that's possible. I can give you one example, which also it's called the weekly auction, which also wins the Nobel Prize for weekly, and it's called the second highest price auction. So basically, it's also a auction for unbear, but there's only one item, actually for one copy. So basically, it's a single item auction, and there's an buyer who will report their valuation to that single item. Then you just allocate the single item to the highest bid, but charge him with the second highest bid as the payment. If you think about that, it's a truthful auction. It's no matter what, to report your true value is always the best strategy, because if you are not the highest value buyer, then if you are report any value which is below the highest one, which is not in your control, then you cannot get the item anyway. So your utility is zero. If you want to go beyond that, yeah, you can get the item, but you will pay something which is even higher than your true value for that, which is result with a negative utility. And right, if you are indeed the highest value guy, then if you report anything above the second highest, you get the same result. You still get the item, you pay the same thing, which is the second highest value. If you report something other BI which is below that, you cannot get the item, but that's not good, because if you report truthfully, you get some positive utility. If you report that one, your utility is 0. So in any case, truth telling is always your dominant strategy, no matter what's better for us. So here we kind of restrict ourselves to this solution concept. So we only allow the auction scheme which is truthful. So in that case, it's very, once you prove the truthfulness of the auction, then it's easier to analyze, because all the BIs is just equal to BI. Then we can measure the performance of the output. Okay, that's good. Then we want to design an auction scheme within that family, the truthful auction family, to maximize the revenue, but compared to the benchmark. So we want to maximize the worst case ratio of this auction revenue from the auction compared to the benchmark. That's the definition of the competitive analysis. Okay, so that's clear, the model. So let's define what kind of benchmark we really used in this model. And one very well-studied one is called this F benchmark. It's basically this benchmark measures the optimal revenue from all the buyers if we only allow a uniform fixed price for all the agents. So if we set a single price for all the agents, what's the best revenue you can get from them? So if you say, without loss of generality, we assume that all the valuations is in this decreasing order. Okay. So if we set any price which is above this V1, then no one can afford the item. So your revenue is 0. So once your price is V1, then the first agent can afford that. Your revenue is V1.
The agents are the ones who are bidding.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then if you set any price between V1 and V2, it's not meaningful, because you still get only one buyer who can afford that, but your price is low, which gives you less revenue. So the next meaningful price is V2. In the case of V2, the total revenue is 2V2, because two agents can afford the item, and the total revenue is 2V2. Similarly, we can have 3V3 and a KVK. Okay, so basically, take a maximum amount of this K times VK gives you the optimal revenue if you fix the price. So, but if we view this as a function, this is a function defined all input factor, and this is, of course, it's an economically meaningful benchmark. And I would mention that this benchmark already have this property that if you can have a competitive auction with respect to this benchmark, you actually can give a good bound for all the symmetric distribution, this family of symmetric distribution. This is connecting to this pair independent auction design. So this is really a very good benchmark to study, and it's also well studied in the literature. But this benchmark, it's not too hard to prove that we cannot get any constant ratio with respect to that. And the hard case is that if V1 is really super large and all the V2 up to Vn is tiny, in that case, you cannot guarantee to get a constant ratio, because in that case, this Fv is equal to V1, right? And in auction, you cannot really get a constant fraction of V1. Because the thing is that in your auction, your payment for this first agent cannot depend on his valuation. Because if you are dependent on his valuation, he have incentive to lie. Because you can think about that. It's a quite obvious thing in auction design. So basically, if you cannot depend on this V1, any information from V2 to Vn cannot have any knowledge about V1, and you cannot really get a constant fraction of V1 in any way. So this is a kind of a technical relaxation of this benchmark, which is called F2, which we only allow that detect this maximum only with this K larger or equal to 2. So we kind of rule out this V1 case. Even if the V1 is super large and V2 up to Vn is small, we don't choose V1 as our benchmark. So this benchmark is always less than that, But in most of cases, they are same. The only case they are different is that V1 is actually the maximal. And this is kind of a really technical relaxation, but I mean, from the application point of view, it's fine, because in the digital good auction, you don't really want all your revenues come from one single buyer. That's not really an interesting case in any way. But mathematically, we need to some modification. Otherwise, we cannot get anything constant. That's anyways what it is. Okay, that's the definition. So we want to design some auction which, with respect to this benchmark F2, we have only good. So the previous work is trying to design auction which is competitive against this F2. And this model was first proposed like more than 10 years ago. It's in 2001, and in that paper they actually proved that there's indeed a constant ratio. But this constant is very large in that paper, more than 100. But it's just prove all concepts. It's doable. Then this ratio was improved to 15, then to 4 point something, 4, 3 point something, 3 point something, 3.12. Okay. There's a line of research trying to improve this ratio, and I would like to give one example what kind of this auction looks like, because it's kind of a magic thing. So this is one particular auction which is easy to present with respect to this S2. We just randomly partition all the agents. These guys are the agents, the buyers of the auction, and partition them into two groups with equal probability, A and B. Then we kind of compute the best possible uniform price for the group A. This best possible is including k equal to 1k. You can say only one the item to one single agent. That's possible because it's half of the total set. So you compute the best possible uniform price here, but if you charge the price here, it's not truthful, because the agent here have incentive to lower the price so that the price is low. But you charge this price in the other group. So some buyers in the group can afford the price, then they will buy the item. Then you you compute the price here and charge the agent in here. So then this is truthful. Think about it. For any agents, you cannot decide your payment anyway. You cannot decide your price. And given the price is fixed by others, which you cannot change, then of course you want to report your true value. If your value is actually larger than the price, you would like to get the item because you have a positive revenue. If you are less than that, you want to report something less than that, which you are not paying.
Can you say the scheme again?
So basically, based on you will get, first of all, you will get all the bid from everyone, right? Then you randomly partition the agents into two groups, A and B. And for the agents in group A, you compute the optimal pricing, the uniform pricing for them, so that the revenue is maximized. Like in our this KVK case, you compute the price, then you set the price there. Basically, you just look at their bid. If their bid is larger than PI in group B, then that agent will get the item with price P1. And if their bid is less than that, then he don't get the item. That's the auction. Then you do the same thing.
Same thing on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay, there's symmetric. Okay.
Yeah, that's truthful, right?
Okay.
But when you have a PI which is less than BI, why don't we just charge BI instead of PI?
Then that's not truthful, right? Then in that case, you are trying to sell the item for everyone. That I said everyone will say that their BI is.
Assuming PI is bigger than BI. No.
Yeah, that's the same thing. You will report 0. It's always the best strategy for everyone.
This scheme will make sure that everybody
Yeah. This is the truthful. Everyone will report their true value. Okay, so this is just one example. And the other line trying to design better and better auction in this framework. And so this line can be go low and low forever. So there's another trying to as a I mean, selected computer science, we're trying to prove low bound for that, right? Then there actually are low bound, which is proved in 2004, actually showing that for any truthful auction, the competitive ratio is always larger or equal to that number. As this is only approximate number. It's the real thing is the irrational number. It's really, yeah, it's a summation of something. Okay, so how do they prove that? They want to prove that any auction has this ratio larger than that. So that's the main difficulty to prove the low bound is that for this is any auction. So we prove P is not equal to NP. So we prove that any polynomial algorithm cannot solve the problem. So here any truthful auction cannot have the ratio than that. That's the difficult part, right? So basically we want to say that for any A there exists some vector, some input V, this ratio is larger than that. But since this is for any, we cannot really play with that. So then the idea is that they introduce a distribution D over the valuations. Then we kind of relate this is the worst case vector input, and this is always larger or equal to if you take the expectation, take the average for both sides. That's true for any distribution, right? Because this is the worst case, this is the average case.
Okay.
Then they just choose this D very good. This D is called this is that here? No. Yeah, but I will give the definition of D in the next slides. But this D is so good. It's called equal revenue distribution in the economic literature. This D is such that for any auction A, this expected revenue from the particular agent I is always equal to 1, no matter what auction you have. Here, of course, you have the assumption that this auction not do anything stupid. If your auction always don't sell the item for sure, then your revenue is 0. But if don't do anything stupid, then you cannot get anything better. Your revenue from the your expected revenue from this distribution is kind of uniform. Yeah, so that's good. They could eliminate this A in this term because this have nothing to do with A. Okay, then this term is always N. So for each agent you get one revenue of 1, then it's N. Then the above term is just calculation. Right? This D is explicitly given. This F has a formula. You just do the integration. You get some term which is 2.42 something. So by that you put a low bound. Okay. So actually, the conjecture that this low bound is indeed tight, and one corollary of our main result is that this is indeed tight. And but actually, our main result is much more general than that. This is our main result. We actually gave a characterization about this tight approximate ratio, tight competitive ratio for any benchmark function, not necessarily this F2. For any non-negative and monotone benchmark, which for any meaningful is non-negative and monotone benchmark function F, there is a truthful auction in this digit goods setting, which achieves a competitive ratio lambda if and only if this inequality holds for any upward closed set S. And the thing is that this inequality have nothing to do with the auction. So basically, we don't even mention this auction, which just says that if this holds for all the set S, then there exists an auction for that. So that's a good thing, because to track that, you don't need to worry about the auction. You only need to check these mathematical inequalities. If you can prove that for all S, then you are done. And this W here is a kind of weighted function, and this is actually indeed correspond to the equal revenue distribution I mentioned. This is basically the definition of the probability of X is larger or equal to Z is equal to 1 over Z. So that's
So what is S is over the
Hmm?
Is in
S is over
domain of it?
S is like in the domain of
Of the
of yes, it's
of the
the
buyer.
one. Yeah, it's like one. We can always normalize the minimal.
Where they're choosing their value from.
Yeah, from 1 to infinity, positive infinity.
So
That's,
it's assuming some distribution, or it's not? It's
yeah, this W especially gives a distribution. This is a,
this is a distribution on the buyers.
yeah, basically.
But I thought you were in a distribution free.
Yeah, but I mean, our result. I mean, the conclusion is distribution free. But here, this is only a mathematical definition. You can view it whatever you can interpolate whatever you want. Like this, yeah, it has a meaning of this distribution. But but what was said is that this will give the competitive ratio lambda if and only if that. So
But the condition is
and this relation is basically the min-max theorem, which saying that you are in worst case the ratio and is correspond to kind of this. Basically, the message from this theorem is that this distribution, this equivalent distribution truncated on S is the worst. Is kind of the worst distribution, worst possible distribution. That's
But
the other.
I'm just trying to understand. So anyway, the punchline is that for the other one, you can show a scheme, you can show an auction which achieves 2.42.
Yeah,
That matches whatever the lower bound.
yeah.
Oh, okay. And then what does this conditions kind of mean in terms of that in that auction, in that setting that we were just talking about?
Yeah, this condition basically means that in their low bound proof they choose this D, which is indeed the worst case distribution of the other.
This has to do with the lower bound proof?
It's have a connection because
But I mean, doesn't it? I mean, it should just be a function of the setting for the auction or something, right?
yes, but I mean the interpolation of that it's have the proof not depends on the low bound, but the reason why we can really show that their low bound is tight is because they really use this distribution D, which is also appeared in our theorem, which basically saying that this distribution is a worst case distribution. And by the min-max theorem lemma, then this also gives the best possible ratios. Make sense?
No, I'm so confused. Because I mean, f is just this simple function. Okay, f I understand.
Yeah, f is
It's this simple step function.
not necessarily. It's any function here.
Yeah, but okay, I'm just saying
yeah.
before.
Yeah.
So you had this simple step function.
Yes,
F2.
yeah. Yes.
Okay. And then you had this auction setting.
Mm-hmm.
Then, but there was no distribution there, right?
So there's no distribution. Yeah.
So then I'm just trying to digest some idea of what the condition you need in order to say that you had an optimal, existent optimal auction.
Yeah, this condition, well,
So can I
It's-
get some idea of what it means? So like, okay.
this all, it's basically says that, how do I put
I'm
it?
just getting confused where the distribution is coming from.
The competitive ratio has nothing to do with distribution.
Yeah.
You look at the worst case.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, well then where's this S? What's
But
the S?
S is a set, in any set, right?
In the support of the valuation. Yeah.
In support of the evaluation, so.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, I guess maybe we'll see how it
Uh,
applied or no.
No, you first of all, logically, do you see any problem with that?
No, I'm just trying to. I guess I'm getting confused where just the condition, like where S is over. What? Yeah.
It's not easy to explain. Well, this kind of condition, appeared not very similar, but it's in other scenario. Marketing design, they also have that. Some there exists a choose for auction or then there's a number of conditions satisfied. Then
So you achieved. So now you gonna tell us what the auction is or something? that achieves the 2.42, or?
There are no simple framework. Formula for that particular one.
Okay.
It's very complicated, and it's. So basically, okay. Maybe in the proof you will see some hint about that. Okay.
Yeah.
What is S, the upward closed cell in the sub? I don't understand the support of valuation vector.
Yeah, that's it.
So we assume all the valuation is from 1 to infinity, and we have a low bound.
Can you go back a few slides to where the auction was or something, and then you can maybe tell us what
the auction.
Mind over. Yeah.
Let's go back. Yeah.
Here.
Here the value. Yes, this VI is a value for the item, right? We are assuming that it's always larger or equal to 1.
Okay.
It's a technical assumption. That's not important because you can always the 1 cent or 1 whatever just to avoid the unbounded case. So this value is from anything from 1 to infinity.
Also, the S is the 1 to infinity to the n?
Yeah, that's 1 to infinity to the n.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, that's... okay, so... Yeah, this S is anything, any subset of 1 to infinity to n, but it's we want its upward close, so we will have something here, I guess. Yeah. So the main idea to that proof is, basically the intuition is the min-max lemma, but we don't really know how to make use of that lemma to prove that directly. It's basically we are showing that this distribution truncated with S is kind of the extreme distribution, which is the worst distribution for this particular benchmark F, and there's some main idea. Another idea is that I said in the statement of our main result, we don't only focus on this F2. We actually focus on all Fs, and that's in our proof. This looks like makes the problem become easy in the sense that if you only focus on one particular F, and it's not really know how to make the proof go in, because in the proof we will modify this F.
So F2 was the step function.
Yeah.
So what do you mean extremal distribution of that? What is the distribution of?
Okay, let's say there's a two places. Let's say one is the auction design. The other is the adversary, which choose the V, right? Which kind of makes the.
Is it a distribution on the buyer or the?
So we want to maximize this V of this function of F and the revenue A of V, right? So basically there's two players. One choose this A, one choose V. Okay. So when the designer choose A, the adversary will choose V, which maximize this quantity. Okay. So this becomes so for any, let's draw a table. Here's all the possible auction schemes, or the possible deterministic auction schemes. Here's all the valuation. So this V is really in the support of 1 to V to n. It's possible value vector of that. Let's call it V1, V2. This is a kind of a continuous case. It's a bit complicated, but if we kind of discretize that, it's then become then also truncate that in a finite box, then this become a finite. Okay, so let's call it F something. Okay, so for each A and each V, which defines a ratio, which is the quantity of that. Okay, this becomes kind of the payoff matrix. So basically, the low player want this number as small as possible, because the designer want like this as small as possible. but the adversary will like choose a V such that this become very large. Okay. So then in the competitive analysis framework, we want to kind of basically we want to give a distribution of all the possible truthful auctions, some distribution here, so that no matter what valuation you choose, the expected payoff is kind of good. Okay. Then by the min-max lemma is correspond to that the adversary choose a distribution among all the possible valuations, the best auction, the best single deterministic auction which can achieve the expected revenue above that. So that's in our goal of competitive analysis, we actually want to design an auction which is a randomized auction which has the best ratio. It's the same thing as for the adversary, which choose a distribution of the valuation which is a kind of worst case distribution, which means that no matter what auction you choose, this ratio is always kind of bad in a sense. And this our main result basically showing that this family of distribution, which is this subset with this density and the truncate via upward closed set, which is already contains all the worst case distribution. So if your ratio, this quantity basically means that for this particular distribution, what's the because in this there's nothing about A here, because for this particular distribution is an equivalent distribution. A is not important, as I said. So this quantity, this inequality basically means that this payoff, this if you divide that here, it's a payoff. This payoff is less than lambda. Basically saying that for all the valuation distribution in this family, any auction can only get can get lambda. The payoff lambda. That sounds
Okay.
So for given n, or like if you have if you know the number of players, then you have some kind of list of strategy where you n probability distribution that would match this ratio.
Yeah. Actually, this 2.42 is kind of the n approach the infinity. And if for a particular n, you actually can get a better bound. It's a sequence of bound. Yeah. If n equal to 2, you can get a ratio of 2. And for 3, it's already a very strange number.
And is the scheme at all related to this earlier approach you described of splitting it in half?
No.
It's not splitting it out.
Yeah, it's very complicated. And so that's the hidden idea, but I always believe that there's another elegant proof which just using that, but we know success. But in our proof, we actually always say that the function have this quantity, this inequality for all the s. Then we kind of how to say? Yeah, this is the idea. So we want to showing that this is indeed the worst case distribution. So this is the upward closed anything. So this is a density function, which is equal revenue density function. But this is a kind of the hidden guidance of our proofs. If you read our proof, it looks like quite differently. It's because maybe I will go to that. So here's the proof overview. So first we actually concide a finite and discrete domain. So basically we pick up using a large box to contain for it's not to infinity but to some large constant m. Then also within that we actually discrete that. And then for that for this discrete and finite domain, we actually can write down all the possible auction, because auction basically a mapping from domain to the allocation and to the there's some calculation of truthful mechanism here, so which makes the domain more easy to represent. Anyway, I will not go to that detail, but basically we can write down using a family of variable to represent that the auction, and then basically all the requirement for this competitive ratio can be written down as a system of linear inequality. So basically something like LP, but we don't care about the objective of the LP. We only care about the feasibility of the LP. So basically you can write down that a very large linear system inequality, and then the idea is that if there exists a solution for this linear system, then there exists an auction because the variable of the linear system is basically indicates the auction. Then we just showing that they are indeed feasible. By showing that they are feasible, actually we construct a solution from zero. Gradually construct a solution, which is we do that solution, and basically we grow these variables until we hit some constraints, and we modify that. We still grow the solution, and in the meanwhile, we always verify this inequality constraint always satisfied after some modification.
So you mean you're getting this fractional solution from the LP, and then you got to make it some integral thing? Is that what you're doing?
No. Fraction is okay. Is okay because randomize the auction.
So what do you have to do from that? I mean, so you can solve an LP that says.
But we cannot really solve the LP because this LP is large. It's exponentially large. We are proof that they exist.
Actually, okay.
Yeah. So then by this there's a finite and discrete. Then we actually take some kind of standard argument in analytic analysis and kind of measure theorem showing that we can actually take a limit and to this real domain. And in the case of symmetric benchmark function, actually we can simplify the condition. We only need to verify all the support, which is also symmetric. That's not a surprise, right? So that's basically the proof for the main theorem, for the localization theorem. Then you will apply that theorem for that particular case of F2. Because in F2, then what we need to do? Then we need to do that for this lambda equal to 2.42, this condition indeed holds, right? Okay, yeah. We still need to verify that. So for this particular of F2, we actually first of all explore some probability of this F2, but like it's scalable, or it's kind of this have nothing to do with the largest value or something, some property we used, and then make use of that. We can have a recursive string formula for that in terms of n. And in their low bound proof, they actually already verified that where does this lambda come from. They verify that if this S is choosing to be the whole set, this inequality is indeed the whole. Actually, it's an equality. Okay, and what we want to show is that for any other upward closed set, it's still holds. That's the thing we want to prove, and we need to check all the extreme, and then it's we do some math, and finally it's written down to this equation, and which is actually known to mathematical. Okay. So
you match the actual irrational number?
Yeah. I mean, irrational in the sense that for each particular given n, it's not an irrational number. So for any n, we match the lambda n, which is a rational number, and then it takes the limit of n. It's yeah.
And is there some other
there are some
schemes where you match? I mean, some other Fs?
Yeah, there are some other Fs actually also match the bound. And another one is which you studied is called it's very similar with that one, but it's have more economics meanings. Another one is this F V is equal to V vector is equal to maximal over K minus 1 V K. In this case, we don't only need to rule out K equal to 1 because 1 this is 0.
You just change the K to K minus 1.
Yeah.
So we sell first K minus 1 people.
Yeah, this have a economic meaning. This is the maximal revenue with so-called K item weekly auction. Because if K equal to 1, this is basically the second product auction. The first highest buyers got the item but pays the second highest. And if you have multiple copy, like you have 2 copy, then the first 2 highest player will get the item with the price of V3. So this is basically the maximum possible K weekly auction. So that's meaning. Yeah, mathematically, but for that it's also interesting. That's the tight ratio. I mean, when n is equal approach infinite, this ratio is e minus 1, and we also show that this is tight.
In the same paper, or?
Yeah, in the same paper. Yeah, and yeah, all these are in the same paper, and this is in the new paper, and actually this is a basic setting about DigiGood auction as previously, and then there are several other settings. One is that if it's not DigiGood, if it's not unlimited copy, so if it's only a copy of like K copy, like K is less than n, then the problem become more difficult in a sense. And the previous result is that the best ratio is 4.84, and make use of the previous result and some new idea, we actually can improve that to 3.42, but we still don't know if it's tight or not. The low bound is also 2.42. Because for that, we don't have a calculation. We only, we can only make use of that, of the unlimited copy to as a subroutine and get some bound, but it's...
So the lower bound is the same, lower bound is...
Lower bound is the same lower bound.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because in the low bound side, if your K is large, then same. Yeah. This is I think very interesting. If you can get a calculation for each limited supply, and I think it needs some new idea. It's not directly generalization. And this is one model. Another model is also studied in the literature that it's still unbounded supply, but it's an online setting. This is online. Okay, so the buyers are kind of arrives one by one in a random order. Okay, then once the first buyer arrives, then you only see the bid of B1. Then the auction seller will immediately decide if the particular agent will get the item or not, at what price. And then second buyer will come, then you do the same thing. You can see the first 2, and you do this. You do that for everyone. So then this seller is kind of less powerful because in the early stage you only see partial information, right? And for that, previously the best bound is also 4.84, and using some new idea, we're not going to have time to talk, we can get a bound 4.12, and this is actually quite close to the low bound. In that case, the low bound is larger because you can imagine it's less powerful for the seller, so you can design, you can constrain a worst case. So that's some extensions of the basic model, and but there are some gaps there. It's not completion, and in particular, they don't have a calculation because in the basic model actually it's a very good calculation. So this is a recap, and we get an affirmative answer for this quite long-standing open question in algorithm game theory, which it's not actually we not only answer this 2.42 as a tight bound, we actually get a complete mathematical calculation for a much more broader setting for any benchmark F, and it's tight results. And we also extend to some other settings like limit supply and online setting. So future work one is to close the gap for this limited supply and online settings could be interesting. And another thing is if you think about more from applied side, then it's a more realistic setting that maybe, as I said, for them the economic approaches, they have full information of the distribution, and but that's kind of not realistic. And in this competitive analysis case, we actually assume no information about the distribution. We want kind of a worst case, but this could be too pessimistic. So if there is some kind of realistic model to compare on these two things, you have some partial information on the distribution and can get some guarantee that will be very interesting. Also, can we apply that to a real business model? That's also difficult. Okay, that's all. Thank you.